One of the greatest injustices of the Trump administration is the deportation of 3 plane loads of supposedly MS-13 gang members to a brutal El Salvadorian prison. Now, which brings us to one of the people on one of these planes. His name is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Now, which brings us to this article. Judge says deportation of Maryland man to a El Salvador prison was, quote, wholly lawless. And this person is absolutely right. Let's take a look. So just to give some preface of who Mr. Garcia is, he was born in El Salvador. However, his family, specifically his mother's business, got threatened by a North American gang called Barrio 18, not MS-13. However, even though this gang supposedly, as far as I'm concerned, originates from Los Angeles, they also have, I think they have operations in El Salvador. So he was approached by this gang to be recruited. It was either that or his mother's business was threatened. In response to this, Abrego, essentially, or should I say, or I'm just going to refer to as Kilmar. Kilmar essentially fled to America. Yes, he is technically considered an undocumented illegal immigrant. All right. However, I think I've also seen that he has been checking in with ICE up until his deportation regularly as well. So yes, even though he's undocumented, he has no criminal record prior to 2025, according to his attorney. Now, the biggest thing that I should probably say is that now you might even notice that it already doesn't really match up with Trump's whole narrative, right? Because these people are supposed to be brutal, violent, MS-13 gang members, okay? But Kilmar has a disabled kid and a wife. Both of these people are American citizens. He has no prior criminal record, and he has essentially been deported with no due process to a prison that is infamous for torture and death. This is the land that we are living in, where somebody who is trying to escape gang violence in El Salvador from the Barrio 18 gets accused of being part of a gang that he is not even remotely associated with, who has a loving family that he protects back at home in America, but still gets deported wrongfully to El Salvador. Now, I know that a lot of Trump supporters would probably say, okay, but if he's deported, he must be guilty. Well, you see, that's the problem. When you don't have due process, you don't go through the process to determine whether or not somebody is innocent or guilty, because he hasn't been proven to be guilty. He's been deported to a detention center that is supposedly for terrorists. Now, keep in mind that maybe you can argue that he should be deported because he's undocumented. Maybe. But the thing is, and the reality of this is, even if you agree that he should be deported, I don't think he should be deported to a brutal prison. I don't think he should be deported to a terrorism confinement facility. He should have been just dropped off. But instead, you see him just simply being entirely deported to a maximum security prison where he might be raped and killed. All right. So let's talk a little about how ICE has proceeded with things. Essentially, they stopped the vehicle. They told him his immigration status has changed and he was deported. He was among the 3 plane loads of deportees to the terrorism confinement center in El Salvador. Again, there's no evidence he was a member of MS-13. Trump administration has even admitted that it was an administrative error. And they say that this error cannot be fixed because they have no jurisdiction over El Salvador. So we have an innocent man who essentially the Trump administration has admitted personally that this was a mistake. And they were like, yeah, you know what? We're going to give up. We're going to give up. All right. So let's take a quick look about what the judge wrote, okay? Because now, I don't know all that much about this judge, all right? But consider me already impressed, okay? So the U.S. government's decision to arrest a Maryland man and send him to a notorious prison in El Salvador appears to be wholly lawless. A federal judge wrote Sunday in a legal opinion explaining why she had ordered the Trump administration to bring him back to the United States. There is little to no evidence to support a vague, uncorroborated allegation that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was once in the MS-13 street gang, U.S. District Judge Paula Zini wrote. And in any case, she said, an immigration judge had expressly barred the U.S. in 2019 from deporting Abrego Garcia to El Salvador, where he faced likely persecution by local gangs. As defendants acknowledge, they have no legal authority to arrest him, no justification to detain him, and no grounds to send him to El Salvador, let alone deliver him into one of the most dangerous prisons in the Western Hemisphere, Zini wrote. Now, don't let Republicans give you the message that this person was undocumented, so he must be deported. No. The fact that, I think it was Ben Franklin that once said, it's better to let 100 guilty men go free rather than let one innocent man get locked up. And the reality of this is, he's not a terrorist. Yes, he may be undocumented, but he's a loving family man. All right? The least you could do, even if you have to deport him, is not to send him to a terrorism confinement facility. This man is sadly one of the many people that have been deported on the 3 death planes. Okay? Do not say that these are just simply planes of deportees. These are death planes. It ruins people's lives whenever they get sent there, even if they are transferred back to the US at a later date. Now, what's especially corrupt is that when an attorney was reached out from within the Trump administration, who was reached out for comments, this is what happened. The White House has described Abrego Garcia's deportation as an administrative error, but has also cast him as an MS-13 gang member. Attorneys for Abrego Garcia said there is no evidence he was an MS-13. Again, if anything, he has resisted gang influence. That's why he's in America. That's why he has a family. That's why he has a kid. In her order Sunday, Zini referenced earlier comments from now suspended Justice Department attorney Erez Ravini, in which Ravini said, "We concede he should not have been removed to El Salvador," and that he responded, "I don't know," when asked why Abrego Garcia was being held. The Justice Department placed Ravini on leave after he made the comments. Attorney General Pam Bondi, in an interview on Fox News Sunday, likened Ravini's comments to a defense attorney walking in, conceding something in a criminal matter. Essentially, what is going on is this lawyer who works for the Trump administration, all right, has essentially told the truth. And the Trump administration is punishing him for it. He told the truth. And he's being punished for telling the truth. He should not have been removed to El Salvador. And I don't know. These are the truth. All right? Because the reality of this administration is that unless you concede every single possible ground to the Trump administration, you shouldn't have a job. You should be on administrative leave. You should be deported. This is a cult. It's a death cult. It's a death cult. Only cults would only allow truth sayers be deported, punished for their so-called crimes, and only have the liars be branded as truth sayers. This is essentially what's going on. This is the amount of corruption, the reprehensible corruption that we are currently looking at right now in the current Trump administration. Stacey Young, a former Justice Department lawyer and founder of Justice Connection, a network of department alumni that works to support employees, released a statement that defended Rovini and said he has zealously represented the United States in some of the most high stakes and controversial immigration cases under the Obama, Trump, and Biden administrations. This person is a veteran lawyer who is just simply trying to tell the truth. Justice Department attorneys are being put in an impossible position. Obey the president or uphold their ethical duty to the court and the Constitution, Yang said. We should be grateful to DOJ lawyers who choose principle over politics and the rule of law over partisan loyalty. When it comes to law, it's important to follow the law. It's important that no matter what your politics are, the law should be followed. And I'm glad that this lawyer found the courage in order to speak up against this grave injustice. What is happening to all of these people who has been put on these planes is unlawful. They have been transferred there without due process, and I'm afraid this is just one of the many cases. The justification for putting them over there are tattoos and MS-13 gang connections when there's no evidence behind any of them presented in a court of law. So this is the reality of the situation. If you feel strongly about it, you should go out there and express what you think. That's about it.